5 children were left on the street to beg for money, until a widowed millionaire shows up and, before we dive into this incredible story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the journey. Harrison Blackstone stepped out of his charcoal Bentley into the bitter December wind that cut through Manhattan's financial district like a blade. At 52, he commanded respect through steel-gray eyes that had learned to feel nothing and a jaw set in permanent determination. 5 years of building an empire from the ashes of his shattered heart had made him one of America's most feared businessmen. The gleaming tower before him represented his latest acquisition, another company absorbed into his vast holdings with the cold efficiency that had become his trademark. But as Harrison approached the marble steps, something made him stop dead in his tracks. 5 small figures huddled against the building's side, barely visible in the shadows cast by towering skyscrapers. Children. The oldest, a girl no more than 12, sat with her back pressed against the cold stone, her thin arms wrapped protectively around 4 smaller bodies. Her dark hair hung in tangled strands around a face that showed wisdom far beyond her years. The girl beside her, maybe 10 years old, held a cracked plastic cup toward passing pedestrians with trembling hands. "Please," she whispered to each person who hurried past without looking. "Just something small." Harrison's chest tightened with an emotion he'd spent 5 years burying. The oldest girl's eyes, deep brown and filled with desperate hope, reminded him of someone he'd lost. Someone whose memory could still bring him to his knees if he wasn't careful. He tried to walk past them, just like everyone else. Business was waiting. Millions of dollars hung in the balance. These weren't his problems, weren't his responsibility. He'd learned the hard way that caring about others only led to unbearable pain. But as he reached for the brass door handle, a small voice cut through the city noise like a prayer. "Please, sir." The oldest girl was looking directly at him, her voice barely audible above the traffic. "They haven't eaten in 2 days." Harrison turned slowly, and for the first time in 5 years, felt the carefully constructed walls around his heart begin to crack. Harrison stood frozen on the sidewalk, his manicured hands still gripping the door handle. The girl's words echoed in his mind, stirring memories he'd spent a fortune trying to forget. 5 years ago. Rain pounding against the windshield of his Mercedes. Catherine laughing in the passenger seat about something their 8-year-old son Michael had said at dinner. The truck running the red light. The sound of crushing metal. Waking up in the hospital to learn he was the only survivor. "Sir?" The oldest girl's voice snapped him back to the present. She was studying his face with unsettling intensity, as if she could see straight through the armor he'd built around his soul. Harrison's jaw clenched. He'd survived by learning not to care, not to get involved. Emotional attachments were weaknesses that led to devastating loss. These children weren't his responsibility, but Michael's face flashed in his memory, the same determined expression this girl wore as she protected her siblings. "What's your name?" he heard himself ask. "Emma," she replied, shifting slightly to better shield the smallest child, a boy who couldn't be older than 4. "This is Sophia, and these are our brothers, Tommy, Luis, and Michael." The name hit him like a physical blow. Michael. Of course. Harrison pulled out his wallet, extracted several $100 bills, and handed them to Emma. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "Get food," he said gruffly. "Find somewhere warm." Without waiting for her response, he turned and walked into the building, forcing himself not to look back. That night, Harrison couldn't concentrate on the acquisition papers spread across his mahogany desk. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emma's face. The way she'd positioned herself between him and the younger children. The fierce protectiveness that reminded him so painfully of Catherine watching over Michael. The next morning, he found himself walking the same route to his building, telling himself he was just checking to make sure they'd found proper shelter. But when he reached the spot where they'd been huddled, Harrison's blood turned to ice. The children were gone. In their place, dark stains marked the concrete, stains that looked suspiciously like blood. Harrison stared at the dark stains on the concrete, his business instincts screaming that something terrible had happened. For the first time in 5 years, logic took a back seat to raw emotion. He pulled out his phone and dialed his head of security. David, I need you at my location immediately. Bring the team. Within 20 minutes, David Martinez arrived with 2 investigators. Harrison had learned long ago that protecting a billion-dollar empire meant having people who could find anyone, anywhere. Sir? David studied the blood stains with professional concern. 5 children were here yesterday. They're gone now. Find them. David nodded without question. He'd worked for Harrison long enough to know that tone meant everything else got dropped. Harrison spent the morning interviewing every homeless person within 6 blocks. His usual coldness melted away as he showed them pictures he'd taken discreetly of the children the day before. Most people scattered when they saw his expensive suit, but a few recognized Emma and her siblings. Big guy took him, wheezed an elderly woman wrapped in newspaper. Mean-looking fella with hands like hammers. Kids were screaming, but nobody helped. Nobody ever helps. Harrison pressed a $100 bill into her palm. What did he look like? 40s, maybe. Brown hair, nasty scar across his left cheek. Drove a beat-up blue van. License plate started with something like NDR, I think. Harrison felt something awakening inside him that he thought was dead forever, the desperate need to protect the innocent. The same drive that had made him work 18-hour days to provide for Catherine and Michael. David's voice crackled through his earpiece. Boss, we got a hit on the van. Registered to Marcus Reed, 847 Sunset Avenue, Brooklyn. Criminal record includes assault and child endangerment. Harrison was already moving toward his car when his phone buzzed with an unknown number. The voice on the other end was rough, threatening. If you want to see those kids alive again, you come alone to the address I'm about to text you. No cops, no security, no games. You got 1 hour, billionaire. The line went dead. Harrison stared at his phone, Catherine's voice echoing in his memory. Promise me you'll never stop fighting for what's right. He made that promise 8 years ago, before the accident stole everything that mattered. Today, he was finally going to keep it. Harrison's Bentley felt out of place in the crumbling Brooklyn neighborhood where broken streetlights cast eerie shadows over abandoned storefronts. 847 Sunset Avenue was a 4-story tenement that looked ready to collapse, its brick facade stained with decades of neglect. He climbed the creaking stairs to apartment 3B, each step echoing like a countdown. The hallway reeked of mold and something worse, desperation. The door opened before he could knock. Marcus Reed filled the doorframe with the bulk of a man who'd learned violence early and perfected it over 45 hard years. A jagged scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, pulling his mouth into a permanent sneer. His eyes held the cold calculation of a predator sizing up prey. Well. The famous Harrison Blackstone. Marcus stepped aside with mock courtesy. Come into my humble castle. The apartment was a nightmare. Peeling wallpaper hung in strips, revealing water-damaged plaster underneath. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and the stench of unwashed bodies. But what made Harrison's blood boil was the sound coming from behind a locked bedroom door, muffled sobbing. Let me see them, Harrison demanded. Marcus laughed, revealing teeth stained yellow from years of neglect. Straight to business. I like that. He unlocked the bedroom door with theatrical slowness. 5 children were huddled on a bare mattress in a room barely larger than a closet. Emma looked up as light spilled in, her face showing fresh bruises. Sophia clutched little Michael protectively while Tommy and Louise cowered against the wall. Harrison had seen corporate warfare, hostile takeovers, and billion-dollar betrayals. But nothing had prepared him for the sight of these broken children. They're mine, Marcus said with proprietary satisfaction. Legal guardians since their mama died. Amazing what you can accomplish with the right paperwork. Harrison pulled out his checkbook. Name your price. $5 million. Done. Harrison started writing without hesitation. Marcus's laughter stopped him cold. You think this is about money? He leaned against the doorframe, blocking Harrison's view of the children. You don't understand, billionaire. These kids aren't just my meal ticket, they're my insurance policy. Harrison looked up from his checkbook, instincts screaming danger. Marcus smiled with cruel satisfaction. Someone very powerful told me you'd come. Someone who knows exactly how to push your buttons. His voice dropped to a whisper. Someone who's been waiting 5 years for the perfect way to destroy you. Harrison's pen froze above the checkbook. Every instinct honed through decades of corporate battle screamed that he'd walked into a trap. Someone contacted you, he said, his voice deadly calm. Marcus lit a cigarette, blowing smoke toward the children's room. 3 days ago. Real smooth voice, expensive suit type. Said he'd been watching you, knew you'd get soft over some crying kids. He took another drag. Offered me legal protection and enough money to live like a king if I played along. Who was it? Didn't give his name at first. Just said he knew your weaknesses. Marcus's eyes glittered with malicious pleasure. Told me all about your dead wife and kid. How you'd been hiding from the world for 5 years. How you'd crack like an egg if the right pressure got applied. Harrison felt ice forming in his veins. Someone had studied him, mapped his vulnerabilities, orchestrated this entire encounter. The children weren't random victims. They were carefully chosen bait. You see, billionaire, Marcus continued. These kids are worth way more than 5 million to the right person. Someone who wants to watch you squirm. Someone who's got big plans for your fortune. Emma's voice carried from the bedroom, weak but determined. He's lying about our mother. She didn't just die, she was. Shut up! Marcus slammed the door so hard the frame splintered. Harrison stepped forward, fury replacing calculation. If you've hurt them, what? You'll call the cops? Marcus laughed. I'm their legal guardian. Court documents say so. Social services backs me up. Far as the law's concerned, you're just some rich creep trying to steal kids. Harrison's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced down, and his world tilted on its axis. Primo Corrito, que interesan v lo tal, apagado. V. The message was in Portuguese, the language he and his cousin Vincent had spoken as children when they wanted to keep secrets from the adults. Cousin dear, how interesting to see you so attached. Vincent Blackstone. His father's brother's son. The family member who'd always resented Harrison's success, who'd been systematically excluded from the family business due to his reckless decisions and violent temper. Harrison looked up to find Marcus watching him with predatory satisfaction. Ah, Marcus said, noting Harrison's expression. I see you've figured out who's pulling the strings. Your cousin sends his regards. Harrison drove through Manhattan's gleaming streets with deadly purpose, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. Vincent's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a building Harrison's own company had financed, a bitter irony that wasn't lost on him. The private elevator carried him 60 stories up in silence that felt like the calm before an execution. Vincent Blackstone stood silhouetted against floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, a crystal tumbler of scotch in his manicured hand. At 48, he'd inherited their family's dark good looks but none of their business acumen. Where Harrison had built empires, Vincent had squandered trust funds and nursed grudges. Primo, Vincent said without turning around, using the childhood nickname that now sounded like poison. I was wondering when you'd come crawling up here. Let the children go. Harrison's voice cut through the room like a blade. Vincent finally turned, and Harrison saw 20 years of accumulated hatred burning in eyes that mirrored his own. Straight to the point. No small talk about family? No catching up on old times? There's nothing between us to catch up on. Oh, but there is. Vincent moved closer, his movements predatory. There's the matter of everything that should have been mine. Our grandfather's company that went to your father instead of mine. The family fortune that somehow always flowed your direction. The respect, the power, the perfect life with the perfect wife and perfect son. Harrison's jaw clenched. Catherine and Michael have nothing to do with this. Don't they? Vincent's smile was razor sharp. Poor Harrison, lost everything in that terrible accident. Spent 5 years building walls around his heart. But those walls have cracks, don't they? All it took was 5 dirty kids to bring out the hero complex you inherited from our saintly grandfather. This isn't about the children. This is about you wanting what you've never earned. Vincent's mask of civility finally slipped. Earned? He slammed his glass down so hard it shattered. I earned it by watching you get everything handed to you while I got scraps. Well, not anymore, Primo. Those children are going to be the key to transferring every share, every asset, every dollar of your precious empire into my name. Harrison felt the trap closing around him like jaws. You can't force me to sign anything. Vincent pulled a manila folder from his desk with theatrical flourish. Legal guardianship papers for Marcus Reed, dated 6 months ago. Child Services reports recommending he maintain custody. Medical records showing the children have been in his care since their mother's death. Harrison's blood turned to ice as he scanned the documents. They looked absolutely legitimate. The beauty of bureaucracy, cousin, is that it always sides with whoever has the better paperwork. Harrison spent 72 hours mobilizing the most expensive legal minds in New York. Constitutional lawyers, family court specialists, investigators who could find dirt on a saint. He threw unlimited resources at the problem, but every door slammed shut. Judge Morrison, who'd been handling family cases for 20 years, suddenly recused himself. The backup judge had a mysterious scheduling conflict. Social services claimed their computers were down whenever Harrison's lawyers called. It was as if the entire system had been vaccinated against his influence. It's not natural, Margaret Chin, his lead attorney, reported during their emergency meeting. Someone's greased every wheel in the machinery. This level of coordination takes serious money and serious connections. Harrison stared out his office window at the city he thought he owned. How long? Vincent's filed for expedited custody transfer. Claims the children are in danger from your obsessive stalking behavior. We've got maybe 48 hours before they disappear into the system permanently. That's when his secretary's voice crackled through the intercom. Mr. Blackstone, there's a young girl here to see you. She says her name is Emma and it's about the other children. Harrison's heart stopped. Send her in immediately. Emma slipped through his office door like a shadow, her dark hair still tangled but her eyes blazing with intelligence that reminded him painfully of Michael. She wore clothes that were clearly stolen, a jacket too big for her frame and shoes that had seen better decades. How did you get here? Harrison asked gently. Marcus got drunk last night. I picked the lock with a bobby pin. She held up the bent piece of metal with pride. My mom taught me that trick before Vincent killed her. The words hit Harrison like lightning. What did you say? Emma's young face hardened with grief and determination. Our mom didn't just die in an accident. She found out about the fake papers Marcus was using to claim he was our stepdad. She was going to the police. Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. Vincent came to our apartment 3 months ago. I heard him arguing with Mama through the door. Then there was a loud noise, and she never woke up. Harrison knelt beside her, his voice gentle but urgent. Emma, are you absolutely certain about what you heard? I recorded it. She pulled a battered smartphone from her pocket. Mama taught me to always have evidence when adults tried to hurt us. I heard Vincent tell Marcus that you were the final target, and that they were going to make you disappear just like they made Mama disappear. Harrison stared at Emma's determined face and felt time fold back on itself. She was exactly the age Michael would have been now, 12 years old with that same fierce intelligence burning in her eyes. Flashback, Michael at 7, standing up to a playground bully twice his size who was picking on a smaller kid. That's not fair! Michael had shouted, his small fists clenched with righteous anger. Harrison had never been more proud of his son's courage. Emma, Harrison said softly, you're incredibly brave. Just like. He couldn't finish the sentence. Like your son? Emma's voice was gentle but knowing. I heard Marcus talking about him. About the accident. I'm sorry. Harrison felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been frozen solid for 5 years. This 12-year-old girl, who'd lost her mother and was protecting 4 younger siblings, was comforting him. Michael would have been your age now, Harrison admitted. He had your same spirit. Always protecting others, always fighting for what was right. Emma moved closer, studying his face with unsettling perception. Is that why you're helping us? Because we remind you of him? Harrison met her eyes honestly. Maybe it started that way. But not anymore. You're not Michael. You're Emma. And you and your siblings deserve protection because you're you. For the first time since entering his office, Emma's tough facade cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she whispered, "I've been so scared. I don't know how to keep them safe anymore." Harrison felt his heart fully awakening for the first time in 5 years. "You don't have to do it alone anymore." Emma wiped her tears and straightened her shoulders. "The recording is hidden in my jacket lining. But Mr. Blackstone, there's something else. Vincent knows I escaped. He's probably moving the others right now." As if summoned by her words, Harrison's phone buzzed with a video message from Vincent. The image showed Sophia, Tommy, Luis, and little Michael huddled in what looked like a warehouse, their eyes wide with terror. Vincent's voice came through the speaker. "You have 1 hour to transfer controlling interest of all your companies to me, Primo. Or these children disappear forever. And this time, there won't be any miraculous escapes." The video ended with little Michael calling out, "Emma! Emma, help us!" Harrison felt rage and protective fury merge into something he hadn't experienced since the night he lost his own family: the absolute determination to save the people he loved, no matter the cost. Harrison stared at the transfer documents spread across his mahogany desk. 25 years of building an empire, reduced to signatures that would make him powerless and penniless. But all he could see were 4 terrified children calling for their sister. "You don't have to do this," Emma whispered beside him, her small hand touching his arm. "Not for us." "Yes, I do." Harrison picked up his pen. Every company, every investment, every dollar, none of it mattered compared to those children's lives. "But it's everything you worked for." Harrison looked into Emma's eyes and saw Michael's face reflected there. "I lost everything that mattered 5 years ago. Or so I thought. Now I know what really matters." Emma's tears fell silently as she watched him prepare to sign away his life's work. "My mama used to say that family isn't about blood, it's about who you'd sacrifice everything to protect." The pen trembled in Harrison's hand. In 60 minutes he'd be nobody. No power, no influence, no way to fight men like Vincent. But 4 innocent lives would be safe. His signature flowed across the first document. "Mr. Blackstone, wait." Emma's voice carried sudden urgency. "When I was hiding outside Marcus's room yesterday, I heard him on the phone with Vincent. They weren't just talking about taking your companies." Harrison's pen stopped moving. "What did you hear?" "Vincent said the money was just the beginning." "He said?" Emma's voice dropped to a terrified whisper. "He said once you signed everything over, you'd become a loose end. And Marcus asked what to do about the witnesses." The pieces clicked together in Harrison's mind with sickening clarity. Vincent wasn't just stealing his fortune, he was planning to eliminate everyone who could testify against him. "They're going to kill us all, aren't they?" Emma asked, her 12-year-old voice carrying the weight of adult understanding. Harrison set down his pen and pulled out his phone, showing Emma the video message again. In the background, barely visible, was a logo on the warehouse wall: Blackstone Shipping, one of his own properties. "Emma, you said you recorded Vincent talking to your mother?" She nodded. "And you heard him planning to eliminate witnesses?" "Every word." Harrison felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope mixed with deadly purpose. "Then we're not signing anything. We're going to save your family and destroy Vincent. But I need you to be braver than any 12-year-old should ever have to be." Emma's eyes blazed with the same determination that had once made Harrison proud to call Michael his son. "Tell me what to do." Harrison's office transformed into a war room within minutes. His security team, led by David Martinez, spread blueprints of the Blackstone shipping warehouse across the conference table while Emma studied them with the intensity of a general planning battle. 12 security cameras, motion sensors at every entrance, David reported. "But boss, Vincent knows all our protocols. He's probably watching for exactly this kind of response." Emma traced her finger along the warehouse layout. "There." She pointed to a maintenance shaft barely visible on the blueprint. I'm small enough to get through there. If I can reach my siblings, I can guide them out while you distract Vincent. Absolutely not, Harrison said immediately. You're 12 years old. I'm not putting you in danger. Emma's eyes flashed with familiar fire. Mr. Blackstone, I've been protecting my family for months. I know how to be invisible when I need to be. Harrison activated his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard as he accessed the warehouse's security system. Vincent may know my standard protocols, but he doesn't know everything. The screen filled with live camera feeds showing 4 children huddled in a corner, while 2 armed men stood guard. There's Marcus, Emma whispered, pointing at the larger figure. And that's Vincent's other guy, Carlos. They look nervous. Harrison's phone buzzed. Vincent's voice came through without preamble. Time's running out, Primo. 40 minutes, or the children start paying the price for your stubbornness. I need the transfer codes for the offshore accounts, Harrison said, stalling. That takes time. You have 30 minutes. Not 1 second more. The line went dead. David checked his weapon. Boss, we can breach the main entrance with full tactical. No, Harrison interrupted. Emma's right. Stealth is our only option. He looked at the brave girl beside him. But you're not going alone. Emma smiled with determination that reminded him painfully of Michael's stubborn courage. Together? Together. 20 minutes later, Harrison's Bentley approached the warehouse district through back streets David had mapped out. Emma clutched a small comm device Harrison had given her, her young face set with resolve. Remember, Harrison said softly, you get to your siblings and wait for my signal. No heroics. No heroics, Emma agreed. Then, with a wisdom that broke his heart. But if something goes wrong, save them first. As they reached the warehouse perimeter, Harrison's blood froze. Vincent's voice crackled through external speakers. I know you're here, Primo. I've been watching since you left your building. Time for Plan B. Vincent's laughter echoed through the warehouse speakers like the sound of hope dying. Did you really think I wouldn't have your office building under surveillance? I've been tracking every move you've made for weeks. Harrison felt the trap closing around them with suffocating finality. Through the warehouse windows, he could see Vincent's silhouette standing over the 4 children like a predator savoring his victory. Emma gripped Harrison's arm. It's my fault. I should have known he'd be watching. This isn't on you, Harrison said, but his voice carried the weight of defeat. Vincent's voice boomed again. Here's what's going to happen, Primo. You're going to walk through that front door alone, with the signed transfer documents. The little girl stays outside as insurance. Any tricks, any backup, and I start eliminating witnesses one by one. Harrison's phone chimed with a video message. The screen showed Carlos holding a gun to little Michael's head while the boy cried for his sister. The child who shared his son's name, who might be about to die because of Harrison's failure to protect him. 30 seconds, cousin. After that, I demonstrate how serious I am. Harrison looked at Emma, seeing his own desperation reflected in her 12-year-old eyes. I have to go in. No! Emma grabbed his jacket. It's a trap. He's going to kill you the moment you sign those papers. Maybe. But if I don't go in, he'll definitely kill your siblings. Emma's tears fell as the terrible weight of impossible choices crushed down on both of them. There has to be another way. Harrison's phone buzzed with another message, a legal document notification. His blood turned to ice as he read it. Vincent had already filed emergency custody papers using forged signatures. The children were legally being transferred to Marcus Reed permanently, and Harrison was being charged with attempted kidnapping. He's not just stealing my fortune, Harrison whispered. He's framing me for trying to abduct the children. Even if we save them now, the law will take them away from both of us. Through the warehouse windows, they could see Vincent approaching the children with predatory satisfaction. Marcus stood behind him, grinning with cruel anticipation. Emma suddenly went very still. Mr. Blackstone, the recording I made, it's not just Vincent talking to my mother. What do you mean? I kept recording after she died. I heard Vincent giving Marcus instructions about the legal papers, about framing you, about making it look like you were obsessed with stealing children. Harrison felt a spark of something that might have been hope. Where's the recording now? Emma's face went pale. Hidden in my jacket. The jacket I left in your office when we came here. Harrison's mind raced through possibilities while Vincent's voice echoed with growing impatience. 15 seconds, Primo. The boy dies first. David. Harrison spoke quietly into his calm device. I need you to retrieve Emma's jacket from my office immediately. There's evidence sewn into the lining that could change everything. On it, boss. Emma wiped her tears and straightened her shoulders with startling determination. Mr. Blackstone, I have an idea. But you're not going to like it. Tell me. Vincent expects you to walk through the front door defeated. But what if we give him exactly what he wants, while secretly recording everything he says? Harrison pulled out his phone, quickly activating a live stream function that would broadcast directly to a secure server. Emma, this is incredibly dangerous. So is letting him win. Emma's eyes blazed with the same courage that had once made Harrison proud to call Michael his son. If we can get him to confess on camera while my hidden recording proves premeditation, no amount of corrupt judges can save him. Vincent's voice boomed through the speakers. Time's up. Say goodbye to Vincent, Harrison shouted, stepping into the warehouse's floodlights. I'm here. Let's finish this. The massive space felt like a cathedral of shadows, with shipping containers stacked like metal mountains around them. Vincent stood in the center like a dark king, his gun trained on the children who huddled together on the cold concrete floor. Smart choice, Primo. Vincent's smile was razor-sharp. Documents? Harrison held up the transfer papers. Let the children go first. Oh, how noble. But I think you misunderstand the situation. Vincent gestured to Marcus, who roughly pulled Sophia to her feet. These children aren't going anywhere. They're witnesses to our family business transaction. Can't have them spreading stories about Uncle Vincent being anything less than generous. Harrison's phone, positioned discreetly in his jacket pocket, continued recording as Vincent revealed his true intentions with chilling clarity. You see, Primo, killing you was always part of the plan. The children too, of course. Can't have loose ends when there's $20 billion at stake. Vincent's laugh echoed off the warehouse walls. Poor Harrison Blackstone, obsessed kidnapper who died trying to steal innocent children. So tragic. Emma's voice crackled through Harrison's earpiece. David's got the jacket. The recording is uploading to your secure server now. Vincent moved closer, his gun never wavering. But first, you're going to sign every document, transfer every account, and watch me become everything you used to be. Harrison began signing, buying precious time as data streamed from his phone. Why, Vincent? We were family once. Family? Vincent spat. You were the golden child who got everything while I got scraps. Well, now it's my turn to feast. Harrison's phone buzzed with a text from David. Evidence uploaded. FBI contacted. ETA 12 minutes. But 12 minutes felt like eternity when children's lives hung in the balance. Vincent snatched the signed documents, his eyes gleaming with victory. Beautiful penmanship, Primo. You've just made me the richest man in New York. And now? Harrison asked, already knowing the answer. Now you disappear. All of you. Vincent raised his gun toward Harrison's chest. That's when Emma's voice cut through the warehouse's darkness. Before you kill anyone, Uncle Vincent, don't you want to know what I recorded the night you murdered my mother? Vincent spun around as Emma stepped into the light, her small hands holding up her smartphone with its cracked screen glowing like a beacon of justice. You little. Vincent started toward her, but Harrison lunged forward, tackling him to the ground. The gun flew across the concrete as both men crashed into a stack of shipping containers. Emma didn't waste a second. She sprinted toward her siblings while Marcus fumbled for his weapon. Sophia! Get Tommy and Luis behind the containers! Now! But it was little Michael, the 4-year-old who shared Harrison's dead son's name, who provided the most crucial help. As Marcus cornered Sophia, The tiny boy bit down hard on the man's leg, causing him to stumble just long enough for Harrison to reach them. Harrison's security training from years of corporate warfare kicked in as he disarmed Marcus with swift efficiency. Meanwhile, Emma had reached the warehouse's main electrical panel. "Everyone close your eyes!" she shouted, then yanked the main breaker. The warehouse plunged into darkness except for the glow of Emma's phone screen. In the chaos that followed, Harrison heard Vincent cursing as he searched for his gun in the blackness. "David, we need that backup now!" Harrison spoke into his calm device while gathering the children around him. Emma's voice was steady despite the danger. "Mr. Blackstone, I uploaded the full recording to your social media accounts 5 minutes ago. Vincent's confession is already going viral." Through the darkness, Vincent's voice carried pure rage. "You think this changes anything? I own judges, police chiefs, politicians. No one will believe a 12-year-old orphan over a respected businessman." That's when Sophia's young voice cut through his threats. "They'll believe 5 children. And they'll believe the video I took of you threatening us with that gun tonight." Harrison felt pride swell in his chest. These children, Emma's intelligence, Sophia's courage, Tommy and Louisa's quiet bravery, little Michael's protective instincts, they were fighting back with everything they had. The sound of sirens began echoing in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Vincent found his gun and fired wildly into the darkness, but Harrison had already moved the children behind a massive shipping container that provided solid cover. 12 years? Vincent screamed. 12 years I waited for this moment." Emma's voice was calm and determined. "Then you wasted 12 years of your life." The warehouse exploded with light as FBI agents flooded through every entrance, their tactical lights cutting through the darkness like swords of justice. Vincent's desperate shots went wild as federal agents surrounded him with military precision. "FBI! Drop your weapon!" Vincent's face contorted with rage and disbelief as Agent Sarah Chin approached with her gun trained on his chest. Behind her, Agent Rodriguez had Marcus pinned to the ground, reading him his rights. "This is impossible!" Vincent snarled as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. "I own half the judges in this city." Agent Chen's smile was coldly professional. "Not federal judges, Mr. Blackstone. And definitely not when you're caught on video confessing to murder, conspiracy, and threatening children." Harrison gathered Emma and her siblings behind the shipping container, his arms protectively surrounding them as chaos swirled around the warehouse. Little Michael clung to his jacket while Sophia and Tommy held on to Emma like lifelines. "Mr. Blackstone." Agent Chen approached them with gentle authority. "We've reviewed the recordings. Both the smartphone audio from 3 months ago and tonight's live stream. Between those and the forged custody documents, we have everything we need." Emma stepped forward, her young voice steady despite everything she'd endured. "What happens to us now?" Agent Rodriguez joined them, her expression kind but serious. "The custody papers were completely fabricated. Marcus Reed has no legal claim to any of you. We're working with family services to find appropriate placement." Harrison felt his heart clench. After everything they'd survived together, the system would scatter these children like leaves in the wind. "Agent Chen," Harrison said carefully, "I'd like to petition for emergency custody." Vincent's laughter echoed across the warehouse even as agents led him away. "You think they'll give children to a man with no family experience? You're fooling yourself, Primo." Agent Chen studied Harrison's face with professional assessment. "Mr. Blackstone, given the circumstances and your involvement in this case, we'll need extensive background checks, psychological evaluations, home inspections. He saved us." Emma interrupted, her voice carrying absolute conviction. "When no one else cared, when the system failed us, he risked everything to protect us." Agent Chen knelt to Emma's level. "Sweetie, emergency placement decisions are complex. There are procedures, protocols, please." The word came from little Michael, spoken so softly it barely carried across the warehouse. "Don't make us go with strangers again." 6 weeks later, Harrison stood in family court wearing his best suit and holding legal documents that represented the most important acquisition of his life. Judge Patricia Williams reviewed the case files with meticulous attention, while 5 children sat in the front row, dressed in their finest clothes and holding hands. The psychological evaluations had been exhaustive. The home inspections thorough. The background checks complete. Mr. Blackstone, Judge Williams said finally, this court is prepared to grant you temporary custody pending final adoption proceedings. Harrison felt tears he'd held back for years finally begin to fall. 6 months after the courthouse victory, Harrison Blackstone's Connecticut mansion had transformed beyond recognition. Gone were the sterile white walls and museum-perfect furniture. In their place lived the beautiful chaos of a real family, crayon drawings taped to refrigerators, backpacks scattered by the front door, and the sound of children's laughter echoing through rooms that had been silent for 5 years. Vincent and Marcus were serving consecutive life sentences in federal prison. The evidence Emma had courageously gathered proved ironclad: conspiracy, murder, kidnapping, and fraud charges that no amount of corruption could overturn. But justice, Harrison had learned, was less satisfying than redemption. "Dad, watch this!" Sophia called from the backyard, where she was teaching Tommy to ride the bicycle Harrison had bought him. The word Dad still sent warmth through his chest every time he heard it. Emma sat beside Harrison on the back porch, working on homework with the same fierce concentration she'd once used to protect her siblings. At 13 now, she'd grown 3 inches and gained 20 pounds, but more importantly, she'd learned to be a child instead of a mother. "Mr. Blackstone, I mean Dad," she corrected herself with a shy smile. "Do you ever miss your old life? The business empire, the power, all that money?" Harrison watched little Michael, now 5 years old and healthy, chase Luis around the garden with pure joy lighting up his face. The boy who shared his dead son's name had become the bridge between his past grief and present happiness. "Emma, I thought I'd lost everything that mattered 5 years ago. But I was wrong." He put his arm around her shoulders. "I didn't lose everything, I just had to wait to find my real family." Emma leaned against him with the trust that had taken months to build. "Do you think your first family would be happy? About us, I mean?" Harrison felt tears prick his eyes as he thought of Catherine and Michael. "I think they'd love you all as much as I do. Catherine always said our house was too big for just 3 people." That evening, as Harrison tucked little Michael into bed, the 5-year-old looked up with sleepy eyes and said, "Daddy, are you going to keep us forever?" "Forever and always," Harrison promised, kissing his forehead. "Even when we're grown up?" "Even when you're grown up. Family is forever, buddy." Later, Harrison stood in the doorway of Emma's room, watching her read bedtime stories to Sophia while the 3 boys listened from sleeping bags on the floor. It had become their nightly tradition, all 5 siblings together, safe and loved. Emma looked up and caught him watching. "Dad? Are you okay?" Harrison nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "I was just thinking how grateful I am that you taught me something I'd forgotten." "What's that?" "That love doesn't end when someone dies. It just finds new ways to grow." As he turned off the lights and whispered goodnight to his children, Harrison felt the last pieces of his broken heart finally heal. Catherine and Michael would always be part of him, but Emma, Sophia, Tommy, Luis, and little Michael had shown him that a heart could hold infinite love without diminishing what came before. Outside, snow began falling on their Connecticut home, covering the world in peaceful white. Inside, 6 people who'd found each other against impossible odds slept soundly, dreaming of bright tomorrows filled with the only thing that truly mattered: family.